Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Cultivating the Culture. It's Sunday, May the 23rd. And this show, we're going to be going over a book called The Final Chapter, I Buried Malcolm. And this is by Hisham Jabber. And we'll be talking with his son. And also we'll be talking with one of the editors or the editor of the book. So as always, we start our show off with our leader, Malik Shabazz, or otherwise known as Malcolm X. So let my brother speak.
Nowadays, to learn how to do is see for yourself and listen for yourself and think for yourself, and then you can come to an intelligent decision for yourself. But if you form the habit of going by what you hear others say about someone, or going by what others think about someone, instead of going and searching that thing out for yourself and seeing for yourself, you will be walking west when you think you're going east. You'll be walking east when you think you're going west. So this generation, especially of our people, have a burden upon themselves, more so than at any other time in history. The most important thing we can learn how to do today is think for ourselves. It's good to keep wide open ears and listen to what everybody else has to say. But when you come to make a decision, you have to weigh all of what you heard of its own and place it where it belongs. And then come to a decision for yourself, and you'll never regret it. But if you form the habit of taking what someone else says about a thing without checking it out for yourself, you'll find that other people will have you hating your own friends and loving their enemies.
Welcome back. Like my brother said, that you have to learn to be able to think for yourself. And those words that he said is basically at the end of his life. The one where he talks about Islam, this was at the end of his life. And one of the things that we always tell the people to notice about Malcolm, if you see a picture where he has a beard, no, that's at the end of his life once he accepted full Islam. If it's not, majority of the time it's, prior to the nation time. And as he says, that he wanted the best for our people so we can be complete human beings. And then also, he said it's important for us to be able to think for yourself. And that's what we try to do on Cultivating the Culture. We try to educate you or try to give you education, not ours, and where you don't back up what we say. We encourage you to investigate everything that we say, to be able to learn, not to compete, not to defeat, or not to go against us, but to be able to learn what the truth is. Basically, we usually go in the beginning about us. We have our organization. It's called Ummat al-Iman, or a Nation of Faith. A Nation of Faith, what we do is we do inter-religion dialogue. We talk and we focus on the Creator, and we talk with the people about the Creator and have a correct understanding about the Creator and worshiping the Creator and understand things about the creative existence. And then we talk about His angels, and we talk about that and the truth about that, and we converse with them about His angels. We talk about His books, and we talk about the books that the creators have sent down over time, and we give the people a good understanding of that. And we talk about His prophets after that. And so people can be able to understand who His prophets were and what they were and what was their message. And we talk about the thing that we call the last day. And the last day, this is what we all expect, and we all have this commonality. And then there's the qadr, or what we call determination, the good of it, the bad of it, meaning things happen, whether it's good or bad, it happens for a reason. Our Creator has done that. And then one of our small groups that we do dawah with, or calling people, we volunteer in the prison system, but this past COVID, everything's kind of been shut down. But what is that's Arabic, it says Jamaat al-Sijin. And a lot of times when I wear that, the Arab will see it, Jamaat al-Sijin, because Sijin is prison. And they look at prison as bad. But I remind them that the Prophet has said, Adunya, Asijinin, Amuhmin, Wajannat al-Kafa. The life of this world is a prison to the believer and a paradise to those that disbelieve. So the reality is you have two choices. If you are a believer and you want to be a believer, then know that this is a prison. You're doing your time. Do your time, the best behavior. Follow the rules and regulations. The Lord of this is the Creator, and He has His rules, and you follow that, and you're going to get out on good behavior and get into Jannah. Or you can turn it into your paradise and act like this and spend your money and do all the things and do what the Creator said don't do, and then you'll be rewarded, but it's not going to be what you want. All right, so we're going to start our show today. I got my brother Muhammad Bashir, and Muhammad Bashir is going over the book. I had talked with him about it. Muhammad Bashir is on our show usually as far as our legal expert many times, and we've had various different shows. So I knew that he wrote the book April 4th, of course. Raw Law. We got April 4th right here, and then we got Raw Law. And if you can get that other book on the screen, that would be lovely. But he has Raw Law, and we were going to go over Raw Law, but of course Malcolm's birthday was the 19th, and of course we don't celebrate birthdays, but we recognize this is a marker in our lives, a marker in existence, a marker for a beginning, marker for an end, but it's a marker of our beginning and stuff. And so, since everybody has been really interested in, Malcolm, we wanted to really to bring back what is the truth. We have this term, like one of the things is we have our media, and what we do is we focus on trying to bring media that's not controlled by what I call WSM, white supremacy media. White supremacy media is commercial media and basically pushes out their imagery, these type of things. We have Hollywood, which is a racist place. You're happy when you get an award at a place, and we've been working there like we can't act. But when a black gets something, it's such a great thing. This is the industry. This is a place. This is like any other job. Something it's not like you got to go to school or get a PhD or something like that. And even those things where we have to get a PhD, we perform well. But in Hollywood, in this industry, one or two of us get something. Why? Because of this supremacy type of situation. And one of the things about our leader, Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, he masterfully dealt with them. He watched what he said. They couldn't catch him, and that was the great thing that the people knew about him. Now that he's gone, and we're going to go over that, I see today many people are trying to, through that supremacy media, they're trying to change the image of our brother and create something that was not there. And just like these brothers took up and they stood up for this brother when he got assassinated and put in that work to be able to protect his honor, that's what we're doing as far as his name, his reputation, and the truth about my brother. So go ahead. It's on you.
Alhamdulillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. For the record, this is the I Buried Malcolm by Haj Malik el-Shabazz by Haji Hisham Jabber, published in 1993. I had the pleasure of being the editor on it, and hopefully we'll get a little bit into that story. This show comes about by virtue of the fact that we had some brothers actually in your media, just like you said, but it was on the Black News Network, and it was 4 Muslims, and they were literally adjusting the narrative on who Malcolm was and what he was about at the time of his death. And it caused me to write a post, and it caused me to come to you because you have a broadcast here to be able to say, can we just talk about the real El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz, what he was like in his last days, and this whole confluence that they're trying to say about his Islam. And so that's how we're here reading this. And so we're going to start with chapter 5 of the book. We're just going to read a short excerpt for it, inshallah. By that time, Sheikh Muhammad Hisham Jabber will have called in, and he can talk more in depth about the surroundings of his dad and the burial of Malcolm X. And anyway, the book begins, or at least chapter 5 begins Sunday, February 21st, 1965. My phone rang. The message, Hajj Malik el-Shabazz had been assassinated. My first words, from Allah we come, to Allah we shall return. And I thought, Hajj Malik is martyred, and martyrdom places one in the ranks of the prophets. Then I realized how religion and the world are broken. Throats are cut, injustices reign, while the blood of heroes is washed away. The waves of revolution, the shouts of protest, the flames of rebellion have all been calmed. Excitement and enthusiasm have diminished. The caller asks, when were the Muslims going to claim the body of the fallen martyr? I am on my way, I replied. But soon another disappointment occurred. I called the Islamic Center in New York. where our brother Malik had taken the declaration of faith, was oriented to the fundamentals of the faith, and recommended to perform the Hajj. No answer. After about a half an hour, I called again. Someone answered, and I explained what had happened. I was told that the director had been called back to his home in Egypt, and no one was there, so the center was closed. I placed another call to the Islamic Mission of America under the directorship of the late Sheikh Dawood Faisal, also a Haji. Response: Malcolm was not really Muslim. I was sure that this learned man knew the criterion established by Allah for one to be called a Muslim, and his response surprised me. I had assumed that everyone was aware that Hajj Malik had made the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, and that he knew that non-Muslims are not allowed in the holy precincts of Islam. I made similar calls to Hajis in New Jersey, and the response was negative. By this time, the Muslims in the local community of Elizabeth, New Jersey, were knocking on my door up in arms shouting, "Let's hurry to claim our brother Hajj Malik, who is now a martyr." When I asked how many were in the entourage, the answer was 60 thus far, with more ready and waiting. I thought about the leaders who had responded negatively to my inquiries. My thoughts, shadows of fear and strangulation, have spread over the silent cemeteries of martyrs, as well as on the cold and silent cemeteries of the living. There is not even the hoot of an owl from our leaders to be heard in the ruined places of faith and hope of the Muslims in this particular country, USA. I then, at the request of my wife, Latifa, called my dear brother in Brooklyn, whom I went to a pilgrimage with in 1962, Hajj Amir Hassan. After a brief discussion, I learned that he had less success with the leaders in New York than I had in New Jersey. I thereafter called for a meeting of the community of the brothers in Elizabeth, New Jersey. That's the chapter of the call. And the reason I think that chapter is important is because in that time, those of us who lived through that time, we understood the dynamic of what was going on. You couldn't go anywhere where there wasn't an antagonism on what was called Sunni Muslims, Nation of Islam, immigrant Muslims, etc. There was always a give and a take and a push and a shove going on at the time.
Right.
And the question for us in our community was really simplistic. Brother died a Muslim, brother gets buried a Muslim. And you could literally see almost every community running away from the burial of Malcolm, Hajj Malik Shabazz, as a Muslim, using every kind of excuse they could to get away from it. But the people in the community that I grew up with were like, no, let's go get him. And they were willing to do whatever it was as men and as Muslims to step forward and go ahead
that's
and
beautiful.
claim it.
That's why. I mean, how old were you when?
11?
11.
11.
So I mean, you were
tell you-
awake and alive and knowing
Bruh,
what's going on.
I tell you see the kufi you have on?
Yes.
That was the first time I put my kufi on. When I saw all these men gathering and I understood, my dad was explaining, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do.
Right.
The sense of pride.
Right.
Of being a Muslim. I mean, you can imagine you're a Muslim, you're the only one in your community. We knew the Jabber family. We may have known a couple of the older guys, but we didn't really know their kids, because there were not a lot of kids who were Muslims back then. So we knew the Jabbers. We knew Brother Talib family, but that was pretty much it. We had to go to like Brooklyn or something. We were in Elizabeth, New Jersey. We had to go to Brooklyn or to Bed-Stuy or someplace like Harlem to find other Muslims. And even Newark. So
your
it's
father,
like
Yahya Bashir, was Rahim Allah was part of them. Right?
Yeah, he's mentioned prominently in this particular writing as well.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. I mean, to be able to partake in something like that, and like you said, see it in action as a young man and see men stand up, to hear, the New York Masjid to step back, or somebody to even say that he's not a Muslim.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that even unfortunately sometimes goes on today.
Yeah.
Where I'll go in, I'll have something in Arabic, and brother, somebody else said, do you know what? Actually, I had the Jamaat Sijin.
MashaAllah.
I went to Jumwa, and the brother was like, excuse me, he gave the kuppar, brother, do you know what that says? I said, yeah. I said, you know what it says, right? And it's like, yeah. And then when I explained it to him, but he was surprised that I even knew the Arabic.
Right.
You know, I've had it where I have something like this and they'll be surprised. So, brother, do you pray? I said, I'm a Muslim. Like, nah, bro, I mean, hopefully you pray, I mean, for you to even ask, like, if that's an option,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, and so this type of idea, and then with the nation, still today, we will have our people will step back, Sunni Muslims, whatever the method they're on and stuff, whatever, and they step back for Malcolm. Why? Because the non-Muslim has, put a headlock on it and taken and ran with it as though, he was there. That's why I said that he was, in fact, of the pictures. And even for us, we set up, okay.
I think the call is here.
Okay, 908. Hello? Hello?
Speaker.
Okay.
Sound like
Hello? Hello?
sound like
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let me try to turn up the volume a little. Okay. Can you hear?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Okay, great.
So, Sheikh, this is Mohammed Hisham Jabber. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah, so for your audience that's out there, as you see at the bottom right here, it says by Hisham Jabber. And Hisham Jabber was the brother that did the janazah. And this individual that we have on the phone is his son, Muhammad Jabber, one of his many sons, and Muhammad Jabber. And so, alhamdulillah, we have the pleasure of this brother calling in and being involved with us. And actually, I'm probably going to switch seats so you can, communicate and take the lead on
Okay,
this.
why don't we do that?
Assalamu
All
alaikum,
right.
Sheikh.
Yeah, Muhammad, we're talking about I Buried Malcolm, your father's book. You and I are both intimately connected to that. You did the book Color Me Muslim, which outlines part and parcel of that most profound day. And I did the edits on I Buried Malcolm. So, with that said, talk to the audience about your dad. I think he's one of the great men. I think he's one of the great men of our time and of any time here in America. Explain to the audience some background on your dad.
Well, my father comes from a very interesting background. Born in the South, North Carolina, and come from a background, a very religious background. In fact, my grandfather, CTC, was actually a Baptist minister, and after he pastored two churches, and very, very distinguished person in the community. And the early stage of my father's life, he had aspirations of continuing his father's work, as a teenager. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. On graduating school, he attended Morehouse College, Morehouse University now, and he enrolled in the theological seminary department there to actually study, a religion, as a foundation, and to assist, my grandfather, his father. In less than 6 months, he found that very conflicting, and he abandoned the program. He joined the military, and he traveled abroad, and he had the opportunity, fortunately, to visit two Muslim countries. As a U.S. Ranger, he visited Morocco and Algeria, and he indicated to us that he was amazed by the culture and all the different types of people that were in and out of that particular society, and it kind of like gave him a broader perspective of life and diversity. So when he came, he was undecided as what life, and the
Should
time
we
my
hang up the phone?
grandfather was living in New Jersey, Elizabeth, New Jersey. My father came back and encountered, some Muslims. And one brother in particular was Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr, and who was at that time, a member of the AAUAA, association. And he introduced my father, to that organization. And from that point on, my father, embraced, Islam, Orthodox Islam, as we call it, at that particular time. And he he worked his way up through the ranks. As you know, Muhammad Bashir, he became the national president. The national imam for the Dino Lahi Universal African Association.
Very good.
Worked diligently in that with your father and all the other brothers that was in that community.
Okay.
Very good.
Real quick is I believe that they're having trouble hearing them. So can you call them from your phone, and then we'll just put that on the speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Muhammad,
We're gonna call in from the other phone and then put it on the speaker so it'll be louder, because for some reason it's kind of low.
on our side, you hear?
And we don't want to miss anything. Alhamdulillah.
This is me calling you, Muhammad, on my phone, inshallah. All right. Alaikum salam to Alaikum salam to barakatuh. Hopefully that comes.
You can put it on this. You put it right here.
Yeah. Hopefully that's better, inshallah.
That's as loud as it goes.
That's as loud as it's going to go. So we got you on my phone and on the office phone.
Is he on the headphones?
Okay, inshallah.
Can you hear me? All right. Obviously the conversation is about the burial of Malcolm. Help the audience understand what your father, what the parameters of what was going on at the time frame that led your father to be the one to perform the janazah of the late great Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz.
Yes, as you know, at that particular time, the Nation of Islam was definitely a very strong presence in the Newark, New Jersey area, and my father, being the national imam for the Dino Lahi Universal Arabic Association, and also the local imam in one of the masjids in Elizabeth, we know about their presence and so forth. And one thing is very interesting, that when we used to view Malcolm Hajj Malik Shabazz when he was actually a part of the NOI, he was a thorn in our side. He was a very profound, charismatic speaker, and he was actually we call hindering the Muslims or the people from coming into Sunni Islam, and that was a problem. And when he embraced, Sunni Islam, that was a great relief, and a great sign for the Muslims. And not only that, he was a Hajj. At that particular time, to be a Hajj was like a second Shahada, because you could not go to Mecca unless you was actually Orthodox or Sunni Muslim, and you had to be interrogated to make sure that you were correct in your understanding about Islam. So when Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz made the pilgrimage, he joined what we consider the Muslim Ummah, and we was elated, and we was very, very pleased to have him, part of our community. And but it didn't go very well with the other side. He was viewed as a traitor, and there was a lot of tension in the society and so forth and so on. And upon his assassination, that tension escalated. And as you know, Muhammad, the brothers in Elizabeth, answered the call. They had a meeting, with one of the elders, Hajj Hassan, who was one of the first Hajjis to make Hajj, indigenous in America. And by default, I would say that being that my father was in that position, he was selected amongst the group to perform the janazah. However, it was a group effort, because security was of utmost importance because of the ongoing threats. Anyone approached the body of our fallen martyr would, be actually chastised. So yeah, definitely.
I remember Sister Latifa, when we were doing the edits on this, telling us about the phone calls and the threats that she was getting in that time. Do you remember those?
Oh yes, definitely. It was an ongoing situation, and not even after the burial. It didn't stop up until the janazah. Of course, it took a week for the body to actually be claimed and actually shrouded, washed, shrouded, and interned. However, those threats was continuous, and it just created a high alert, until the tension, went down, and that was one reason why we were restricted from coming into New Jersey. As you know, Muhammad, we came in as, like we turned 12, 13, you see another son of Haji Sham Java pop up, we used to play ball on the court there.
Right.
And that was because, it wasn't a safe haven, and my father didn't think it was a safe haven to have his family right there in the midst of all of that, and the riots and thing was evolving at the same time. So it wasn't a healthy situation in his opinion for us. I mean,
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, and that's
Alaikum
the thing is the people really don't play that time what was happening prior to even Malcolm being assassinated. If you look at the videos where he's talking about going to different cities and them, from the nation or different people trying to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
People keep talking about when he went abroad, of course, because the actions that Malcolm was doing was stopping everybody's money. Mm-hmm. Internationally, the things that he was doing, were going to African nations and sitting down with them and trying to do direct deals. He was actually continuing what Marcus Garvey was doing, extending it, but he had the direct contact with these leaders. Mm-hmm. So people talk about what was going on there, but back here, in Jersey, or back in Jersey, and back in the United States, there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of tension that was going on. So for these men to not fear that, like reading the book where they said when it happened, they said my brother's been martyred, and even today people are even scared to even refer, like, do we have permission to call him a martyr, and like you said, this type of ideology. But it's beautiful to hear these brothers instantly accepting this Islam, understanding what it takes to become a Muslim, and then taking it and then putting their life on the line. Like you said, you had children. These men had children, and they knew that there was a possibility of them, attempting to assassinate them in doing that, and they stepped forward. So this is beautiful.
Yeah, and especially your dad, right, Haji Sham. With Malcolm off the scene and your father stepping forward, word was going around in the community that he was attempting to be the next Malcolm, and if he was going to be the next Malcolm as it relates to a leader, then he was going to be the next martyr.
Yeah,
am
I right?
You're right. You're definitely right about that, because, like you said, we had, my father always said that we was waiting on Malcolm to come over, and when he came over, it was a short-lived event. But the fact of the matter is that the Islamic movement was under scrutiny, and there was barriers and hurdles and obstacles placed in front of them to stop their growth. And as you know, as children growing up, we had a village named after Professor Muhammad Azadeen, the actual founder of the AAUAA, and we was actually being cultivated, and cultivated in the Islamic paradigm at a very early age, and they knew the dynamics that could come out of that, and having someone like Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz to come on as a mouthpiece, and would escalate, what we was trying to accomplish, and also be able to redirect all of those people we had under his leadership, who was following him when he was in the NOI. So we saw that my father being able to pick up those pieces, and in fact, as you know, a lot of brothers and sisters as well, as they evolved, and they made that transition out of the Nation of Islam, they came into our communities, in large numbers, because when you look at their background and their first encounter with Islam, I would say about maybe 60% had an encounter with the NOI. So that transition from Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, martyrdom, and my father, being the liaison to actually continue, to orientate and to actually bring those brothers back into the right understanding of Islam was definitely a challenging issue.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like, I was born in Jersey and Montclair, but in '64. But my father had left the Air Force and joined the Nation in like 61, and so he was part of those people. But he, a lot of the people actually believed in Malcolm. We were actually out of Temple 25, whatever. Was South Orange Ave, right?
South Orange Ave.
Back in the day, I just remember the bean pies as a kid. That's about it. But he used to a lot. They believed in what he was talking about and believed in message. I think that organization, because of the brotherhood and what was going on, and he established that. He was one of the major ones to build it. And these are people that he raised and trained and stuff. And so a lot of people knew Islam was the truth. It was different forces that was there. Like you said, talking about with your father, people thinking this another individual to pull them to Sunni Islam,
Right.
because that was the issue. Malcolm wasn't, killed just because of the black thing that they keep pushing all the time. The white man this, the white man that. Look at Farrakhan. That's all he does. He talks about that. What has that done? The thing was when he went to that next step and getting that independence and not having that fear. The fear of the so-called ban, the fear of anybody else. And Malcolm, going international and us, being into that international brotherhood and know that this is not a thing of, like he said, about race, black or white. This is a thing about good or bad and understanding that. So we got black devils, we got white devils, we got yellow devils, anybody that follow the path. But unfortunately with the nation, they was just focusing on a person's color. But, the thing of the shaitan is not about the color, it's about the actions. And that was the beautiful thing.
Sheikh, I'm gonna read you something from I Buried Malcolm. I want your comment on it, all right? This is in chapter 6, and it says, Hajj Malik was killed for one reason and one reason alone. He insisted on being steadfast in Islam. He had acquired the dimensions and development of the Islamic personality. He understood that Islam is clear in its definition of what it is to be a man, what a man's duty is, and what man's place in the universe must be. Comment on that, especially considering your dad. See, cats who don't know your dad don't know. He used to tell us all the time we were kids that Allah don't place cowards in Islam. He don't reveal Islam to cowards.
Yeah, that's right.
He used to say that all the time. So talk to me about that.
When you look at Malcolm when he was actually in the NOI, and when he was on the soapbox, and when he was on the platforms in Harlem, he said some very, very threatening things from that platform. More so than Dr. King or Medgar Evers. You would think that he would have been, killed for those type of comments and have the type of racial rhetoric that was being propagated by the Nation of Islam, and no one touched him. He went to and fro as he pleased. And then when he actually proclaimed his Islam in a proper manner, all of a sudden, all the odds was against him. Those people that had embraced him and that were following him became his devout enemies. The very organization that he built, he found hostility coming from that. So you have to conclude that when you look at the various dimensions of Islam and the potential that Islam holds within it, you would have to agree that my father made an accurate assessment, because he was in the trenches himself at that particular time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Tell me this, you all, in order for him to have claimed the body and all of that, and for the Muslims to have claimed the body, I know you have to go, but when you go, you get a chance to look at this tape. I'm going to explain to the audience the backdrop of the plot, the plan, etc., to get into New York and to stay in New York and to protect the lives there. But explain the relationship between your father and Betty Shabazz.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That was the one question I wanted to, because I watched the video and it was beautiful to hear that you guys comforted Sister Betty like that because she needed that protection.
Betty Shabazz, may Allah give her the highest paradise.
I mean,
she suffered a great loss. She lost her husband. And she was, and that transition was so fast, and there was really no one there to pick up the pieces, and she was shattered. And my father, she could remember, the presence of my father, coming forth, standing there, giving her husband his rights, all the way from the salat, the prayer of janazah, all the way to the interment. And my father was very diligent in performing that duty because he wanted to make sure that no one had claims to Malcolm but the Muslims. And I think that impacted her life because she traveled to make the pilgrimage herself, months after, within the same year that her husband was assassinated, a few months after, and she was pregnant. She was carrying twins at that particular time. And I think that she wanted to kind of like include herself in Malcolm's vision. She wanted to go herself to Mecca. And she said herself that if if it wasn't for the Hajj, she don't think she would have been able to survive that trauma. And I think that's what created the bond between her and my father. And every year she would request him to come, to Boston to speak on behalf of her husband. And I asked my father, why is that he do this every year? Why he performed this, that? And he said that because everyone is pulling and grabbing on Malcolm, from the black nationalists to the Afrocentric community, from the political scientists, all types of people. And he wanted to make sure that Malcolm stayed within the confines of the Islamic ideal, and that's why he performed it. And I think that kind of like put a stronger impression on Betty, and gave her a deeper insight as to what is Islam and what is the real brotherhood. And when she herself was badly burned, as we know, and she was on her deathbed, she requested my father to come, and he actually went. And my father told me that he would lead her in prayer, and she would follow him with her finger because she was so badly burned. So they had a long-going relationship. And also, Malcolm's sister, Ella Collins, my father would visit her on numerous occasions. As you know, Muhammad, she would come down, and when we have affairs in Jersey, she would come down as well.
That's right.
And my brother, Imam Ali, would sleep in Malcolm's bed when they would visit the house, when they would spend the night. And
he still brags about that, in case you want to know. Mashallah.
So that was a reunion, I think, even with the tragedy, so much came out of that. And, I think Ella Collins was also a great support to Betty and mentored her as well. And she was able to manage the Muslim Mosque Incorporated affairs, and as far as making sure that the scholarship that was allotted to them was given out to people who was, actually worthy of it. And I think the masjid in Boston has given her a department there, because of her association and her commitment. They call it Ellen Collins, I think, department in the Boston masjid.
Alhamdulillah.
So and we are part of that legacy. And I always say that Malcolm is not history to us because we lived in that experience.
That's right.
And not a history to us. We don't need the magazine clippings, the YouTube, talks and the stamps and the street time. We know Malcolm as a living personality in our own midst that we connected with, and we had to Allah bless our community, Muhammad, to be able to oversee, his last rites of the janazah. And we was blessed again, to be that same community that was able to rise to the occasion upon the death of our sister Betty. We was the ones that was blessed to carry her coffin and to
I still have that picture of you all in the New York Times, and I was heartbroken because I was supposed to go with you, and we got called out to trial on that when her janazah was going on. I can't even believe how mad I was, but I still see the picture. It's still one of the most brilliant pictures ever in New York Times history.
And see, for your father to do the janazah of Malik Shabazz, as known as he is, great as he is, and for Sister Betty Shabazz, as known as she is and as great as she was, both of them, and for the people to not push this name, for it not to be a household name.
Hisham Jabba, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This shows like this we talked about. When we talked about one of the things that Malcolm dealt with is he knew about the media. And when we were kids, remember when TV used to go off, and so and today we didn't watch it like believe that it was real. We knew that it was fake, most of it and stuff. And I use the term. It's kind of like an electronic gym, being in your household, being able to teach your kids. You would never let it in if it was a book. All of these shows that they watch, if it was in book form, you wouldn't let your kids read it. If they actually, wasn't beautified and stuff, you wouldn't let them speak to it. But ever since then, they've been able to come in and do their imagery. Just even with Brother Malcolm, right now they're doing this thing, Godfather of Harlem. And one of the things, I'm watching the show, and I know, like you said, that history. I know my father. and the things that they used to tell him, what happened in Philly with, Abu Bakr and Bo Baines and these other brothers, and how they dealt with the Italians, how they stepped them back. So they had the ability to be able to make a phone call and get 20 busloads from every city. So why would they need the Godfather of Harlem to be able to aid them in any type of thing? But this is the type of imagery that they're showing about the Muslims, and that Malcolm had that type of command in New York City and in New Jersey and in Philadelphia, was able to bring the people there, and when he went into full Islam, to bring this type of momentum, to bring this type of manhood, to bring this type of fearlessness. And they were about business. They had businesses and all these other things. They didn't want that to happen. And what your father did, just people hearing that type of story will make people, and it's going to wake up this generation. There's new revolution that's going on, and your son's generation, our generation, we have to be able to make sure that energy, that truth, that reality is passed on to them, because they have the knowledge of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But as we went over as Bab Nuzul, reasons for revelation, and everything is related to an incident. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent something down, after something happened, and it's real, keeping it real, and that's what we have to do with that. And this book, we need your, please, can y'all put it back out, publish it? I saw somebody selling it for $950, and somebody else selling it for $900. That's how much people want to be able to get this information. When I put it out, everybody's asking, where can I get the book?
Well,
so please, y'all, put it back out.
Well, we had a conversation. We have an ongoing conversation, me and the family, about rewriting the book, and just doing another edition of it. So inshallah, it'll work. Muhammad, any great last words? I want to say a couple of things too. Just the Shabazz family. I think it is Ilyasa. With your brother Ali and Hassan Abdullah, right? She made Hajj with them. So the ongoing relationship between the family and the Elizabeth community still exists. Hassan Abdullah being my little brother in the law in New Jersey and Elizabeth, and Ali being the Imam at Dar Islam in Elizabeth. So the connection still remains. So alhamdulillah, everybody's still trying to do their best to stay on the straight path and still be fearless in their staying on the straight path. Any last comments so I can let you get back to your next phone call?
I think what is upon us, Muhammad, it's part of our community that we bring this legacy of Hajj Malik Shabazz into proper perspective, and I think that we're on that path right now, because we've been watching everyone misrepresent him. We saw the finale that they did at his grave site, the libations and all these other types of things, and I think it's upon us now to come together collectively and try to really put his life in perspective and give the people the proper picture of how Malcolm needs to be viewed and seen, in his latter days, and that is as a Muslim. We have to be able to separate the Malcolm X from the NOI and from the Hajj Malik Shabazz, as he made the pilgrimage and came back with the proper understanding of Islam. And we have to mirror that, and as opposed to allowing other people to continue to misrepresent him and things that he renounced and stepped away from. That part of his life no longer exists, and should not be attached to him as the person we see, and the person that we have an opportunity to embrace and so forth and so on. So this is the work that we need to do, and for all those brothers that, especially in our community, who lived through that experience, it's upon us to do something very grand, and majestic in regard to his life.
Oh, alhamdulillah, that's powerful stuff.
MashaAllah, may Allah reward you for your effort. And we heard that you're traveling and spreading the message. Actually, he's doing something today.
Yeah, and I know you got another engagement at 9:00, right?
Yes, I have another.
He's going to be live, because maybe the people that are listening live now could be able to tune into that.
Inshallah. They have in the clubhouse. I'm invited to. I'm doing a series on the life of Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of Mary, and from A to Z. And this is my second talk tonight about his mission and so forth.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah continue to bless you, keep you strong.
And the last thing is, tell us about your organization, because we always try to push so other people can follow up, because this is a family. Tell us where they can find you, about your efforts, whether your website or whatever.
Yes, My email is the Bureau of Indigenous Muslim Affairs. Right now we are revising our website. I'm also connected to Masjid Darul Islam. I'm a part and parcel of that community, and I work there, in the religious affairs department as well. And that's what I do. I'm a lecturer. And Muhammad, he has all my information. That's my brother too. I mean, he can put his hands on, I'll give you some updates, and I'll probably give you a CV on me so that I can reference it if needs, inshallah.
Please do, inshallah. May Allah bless you, keep you safe out there, and inshallah, if you get an opportunity, let us know anything that we can do to help in your communications efforts. We're trying to do the same kind of communications on this side of the world, because we have to bring this together for all the right reasons, and especially for the pleasure of Allah the Most High. All right? So, inshallah, thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for calling. I appreciate you.
Reaching out to and have me on your program. It was an honor.
Thank you, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
All right, now I'm gonna give you the fill-ins on this. I'm gonna give you the fill-ins. All right, so you tell your audience to listen closely.
Go on, you gotta look at the camera.
Are we live? Okay, is that live?
Yeah, little camera.
Okay.
Tune it on, my brother.
Baby, 1992, 93. I'm a young lawyer, but I've known Haji Sham since I was a baby. And he comes to me with boxes, napkins, receipts from whatever store, whatever, with his notes written on it, and he dumps them on me. I'm gonna tell you the nature of this community. He dumps it on me like this here. I'm practicing law now, an individual sole practitioner. And he's an elderly man, 93. And he says to me, I need this turned into a book. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at these napkins, and I'm looking at these papers, and you talk about a ripped piece of paper with a note on it, and this, and a quote on it, and I'm like, Sheikh, what do you expect me to do with this? He looks at me and he says, I expect you to turn it into the book. You're a lawyer, you're the journalist, you're the writer, you do the book. No question in my mind looking at it that he was telling me you doing this book. Right. But that's the nature of the type of man and the type of men that I grew up with. They saw what it was that you do, and they came to you and say, now I need you to do this for me. Because just like when they said we need this body claimed, there was no doubt in the minds of the Muslims in that community that they were going to claim the body. When he says he got that call, he got that call. Right. The person he talks about, Amir Hassan, Haji Mir Hassan, he said, and Muhammad talked about him having been one of the first indigenous Muslims to make Hajj. This is like the 60s, late 1950s, early 60s that these guys are making Hajj. And they're wearing the label Hajj so that they can differentiate themselves from anybody else who's coming out into the world. Right. All right? And the reason why they're doing that is because this was the nature of the struggle, and they knew that they were, by doing this, by embracing Islam, they were jumping knee-deep into the struggle of what was going on in America.
And especially being able to leave this place with the oppression that we were having, and go over to a place, and like Malcolm said, you'll see somebody whose their skin is white, the Turkish or these other Bosnians and other people, but that nature of superiority, ana khayru minhu. And al khayru minhu is, we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to, Iblis, why did he not bow down? He said, ana khayru minhu, khalaqatani min nar wa khalaqatahu min teen. I'm better than him. You created me from fire, while you created Adam from earth. And this is the deen in this country. And so you come over here and they teach it and that type of thing. So when you feel it, you feel that energy. Whenever you have this type of arrogance, this kibba, it just proceeds before you even open your mouth.
Right.
And to go to a place like when I went to Hajj, and imagine them during that time. So yes, it's a distinguishing factor.
Yeah, it became,
and for Sister Betty to be able to go to wonder the change that she saw, because that's her husband, and he went through and he was writing it back, and everything is slow. You got to write. It was like my husband, and for her to say after all that, and for her to go, and was like, wow. You know what I'm saying? Because this is what it is.
Yeah.
This is not about, us stuck on stupid, white, black, white. No, I'm a human being. Ana Bashirun. Like Bashir, you're a human being.
Mashallah.
Ana Bashiru mithlukum. I'm a human being just like you.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Not on a, this and that type of focus. So, I mean,
Yeah.
but one of the things that we were talking about this morning is that, like you said, a village. And it takes a village to raise someone. It doesn't take a king. And what they've shown us is that, it takes a king, a king Wususa, or king this or king that to raise it. No, it takes a village.
Right.
And everybody has a part in the village.
Right.
Somebody's up in their trees looking out. Somebody's, digging. Somebody's eating. Somebody's doing this. Somebody's taking care of kids. Somebody's going out. Everybody in the village has a role, and it is a village, it is one unit, and that was the thing that you had there.
Well,
that type of community.
I'll give you some examples so that you get so you get an understanding of the mentality of the men who were raising us. Remember the story of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, where he asked Allah to either bring him one or two people to Islam,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Two Umars.
the two Umars, right?
Yeah, the two Umars.
And Umar ibn al-Khattab is walking by and he hears he's going to kill Muhammad. And he's going to kill Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he hears, he tells someone, I'm going to kill Muhammad, and they say, well, you should be talking about your sister because she's a Muslim. And he goes to his sister who's Muslim, and he smacks her around, and smacks her husband around, etc. He's mad because he ain't into this Islam.
Right.
But he hears the life-giving words of Allah, the affirming words of Allah, and it touches his heart because only Allah can touch the heart. When Malcolm was around and I was a kid, he was fiery against what was called Orthodox Muslims. I'm using that word for a reason. He was fiery against Orthodox Muslims. Like, you think you know something we don't know. You think your Islam is better than our Islam. That kind of cat. Right? Until, now the Muslims who were from our community were like, this brother's bad. Regardless of what you say about him or what he say about us, this brother is bad. So the question then becomes, how do we move this brother? Can we reach this brother? So there were a lot of overtures toward him to try to get him to just read, just try to understand, just etc. And Allah brought him of all people, to what is commonly referred to as Sunni Islam. Now I bring that up because Sunni is equated with Orthodox. The reason why I was so fired up over this is because I saw a black news network, and there were 4 Muslims on it. The Muslim host was supposed to be Mark Lamont Hill, and then there were 3 other Muslims who I won't shout their name out. You can go Google it and find it out.
I'm trying to make names. I don't want them to start sending
and they were,
or whatever because we talked about somebody bad.
But what they were doing was trying to get the people to at least put out into the world that Malcolm got his understanding of Islam by virtue of the fact that he was a member of the Nation of Islam.
Oh, and see, I had to shut somebody down because the thing is when you talk to the ignorant, like I said, the presses love ignorance. And when you talk to the ignorant, the people that wasn't a part of that movement,
right?
You can put anything out there. There was this guy, I had to shut him down. He's giving the real history. Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam ended in 1975 when he passed it to his son. Elijah Muhammad knew that his son had been practicing full Islam for over 10 years. So he knew the direction that his son was going to take it. And he passed it to his son. His son took it to Sunni Islam. So then Farrakhan started what I call Nation of Islam NOI 2. Because NOI 1 ended and went into full Islam.
Right.
You see? And Elijah Muhammad knew what was happening. He knew his son was taking it.
Right.
Then Farrakhan, 2 years later, started up Nation of Islam.
Right.
But didn't let the common man know that, no, this is not Nation of Islam from Elijah Muhammad's. This is yours. This is your creation.
Right.
You see the difference? During the time with Elijah Muhammad, they had farms, they had all this thing, banks, all of this. What they got? Farrakhan's worth $3 million? You see what I'm saying? So when I explained that to them, people were kind of surprised. They're like, it's separate. And I said, one thing you got to realize, when, like you said, during Malcolm, they were trying to assassinate because he was pulling people to full Islam, pulling from the organization.
Right.
And if Elijah gave a command, the people did it. If Elijah said something, the people did it. So if Elijah was alive in 1977, and Farrakhan or anybody said that they were going to start his organization again, other than letting what he said that his son was supposed to be in full Islam, we know that organization wouldn't be around. Oh. So they started it, even though, because they know that Elijah is gone. But Elijah, if he gave a command, those people said they're following Elijah are supposed to follow him. So I tell the people when they come to me, I say, you don't follow Elijah Muhammad. Because Elijah Muhammad passed it to his son, who he knew was going to take it to full Islam. You're following somebody that did something against what Elijah said. And people are not used to that truth.
No, but that's the nature of the importance of claiming the legacy of Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz. When the story is told of his progression and his growth, the idea is that he comes back and he says, he's been on all sides of this planet.
Right.
He's like the prototypical black man.
Right.
He was born in Jim Crow. He was born into the slave mentality. He was born into violence against yourself. He was born into criminality. He was born into American hatred. He was born into white supremacy. He was born into all these things, and he fought his way through. And where did he come out at? He come out at La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he comes back and he tells the world, if the white man in America could find Islam, then we might be able to deal with him. And therein lies the legacy that is to be claimed, because as long as people are able to pigeonhole him back into some black nationalism, pigeonhole him back into the Nation of Islam, then they can say, look, this struggle is about this, as opposed to about the pleasure of Allah and the jihad fi sabilillah.
And we are your owners.
Yeah.
We run you. We run you. See? Okay. Because we control that black-white thing.
That's right.
You know, we on top. We running you.
That's right.
You see, so as long as, and we gonna do this and we gonna do that.
Right.
But when we go on good and evil, you know, Allah says the devil's weak. So his tricks are obvious. It's in the book of the Quran. It's in the books of the Torah. It's in the ibnJamil, or the books of Jesus. It's in the books of Moses. He says the things that he undo, but people fall for those traps.
Right.
You see?
Right.
But if we just limit ourselves to what the white man's going to do, white, black, then, oh man, we going to lose. You see what I'm saying? And that's what they want to keep us on that.
And this is what this book happens to do for us. This is what this book in 1993 did for me. Helped me to reconsider, refocus on what the real example that was given to us is of what manhood is. So he wasn't the only man.
Right.
It was the men who stood up for Islam to grab him, to give him his rights.
Right.
He was the man who stood up out into the open.
And inspired. When
Absolutely.
you see somebody that's real, just like when the movie came out, there's a lot of things I didn't like, but I did like the part when they showed him at the police station. And he came out, and when he dispersed the crowd, he dispersed his people and the crowd. They said that's too much power for one man. So what happens is, like you say, as a child, when you seen your father and these other people stand up, when you see a man stands up, that's why they keep the black man out the home.
Absolutely.
They keep a black man or a weak man because they don't want children. When you see a real man, when you see a man that can be able to stand up to somebody and be like, nah, you know, you're not gonna run me, you're not gonna control me. I can speak this language better than you. I have everything that you have. What's happening? Right. And that's it. They don't want that.
No, they don't.
They want us to be like, oh man, look what they doing to us. They did this and they hung us and they did this and they killing us and they like, nah, man. You're not going to do anything to me.
That's right. The Muslim is not going to allow that. That's just like the Muslim would not allow him to be buried as anything other than a Muslim.
And we inspire the Christians. If you say, okay, I follow Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you follow Jesus, then act like Jesus, live like Jesus. And they're like, man, because y'all acting like your prophet, then I'm going to step up. But what happens is when we're not around, who are they going to act like? The devil? No. I'd rather them act like Jesus, how he lived, than act like the devil.
Right.
And so they get us divided even with the religious thing where the people step back and we competing and stuff. No, I'm trying to inspire you. I want you to act like Jesus. And those that follow Moses, I want you to act like Moses and follow the law of Moses. And in the law of Moses, it says the people of that land that you're going into, you got to give them full rights. Right in the law of Moses. So those that follow Moses, please do that. Read your book and follow it. Those that follow Jesus, please do that. Read your book and follow that beautiful example that this man had. Because when he comes back, and he's coming back because he was raised up to the heavens, he hasn't died, he wasn't crucified, he's coming back, it's going to be the same one, and he's going to be doing the same things. So understand how he lived. Because if you're not living like he lived, and you're just saying the name, know that he will not know you, and you will not know him. And the same thing for Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Many people want to claim, they want to say, Anna, yeah, we just like him. We're following him. We are those people. They put these names and all of the names. But the reality is not the name that you put. It's the action that you do, what you say, and how you live. And if you follow what Allah says, ati Allah wa ati Rasul. Right? Follow Allah and follow the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we look for all the time, people keep talking about a leader. We have to have a leader, that's going to bring it together. We have one, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If all the people, how can we look for somebody to come, but we don't know what our prophet did? We have to first know what Allah said to do. We have to know what our prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. We have to know that what the prophet did and the companions did, and then their reaction to that. Then we know how we can follow somebody.
Absolutely.
But if we're ignorant of that, we're going to be following led astray, and we'll continue. We have to be able to educate, and that's what this show's about. To be able to educate, to uplift, and to get our people to be correct, so we don't keep falling to the traps and listen to trap music and trap house and all of that. Follow Jesus, his example, not what the people say he said. Follow his example. Follow Moses. Follow his example. Follow Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's the final one, because why? All of Moses, Jesus, all of them, they're going to be following Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because it's the last message that the Creator sent, and all the prophets do what the Creator said do. So, brother man, I know next week we're gonna go over the other book, but it was Malik Shabazz,
Right.
He's talking about 96 years old. 96 years old.
Yeah.
And I asked the person the question: imagine if you got a chance, if he was still alive, to sit down with a man with that type of wisdom, that type of wisdom.
Yeah.
That never finished the 8th grade and went to Oxford and debated at Oxford at 39 and won. Name somebody that did that.
Yeah,
name a European in American history. Name an American in American history that did that without having those degrees.
Yeah.
You want to end it, brother?
Oh, alhamdulillah, this is your show. You knock them out.
Nah,
You just
man,
knocked
this
them out
is
the
your
box.
show.
Mashallah.
Yo, it's a brotherhood, and see, the thing is, it's not like, even though I got my picture, but this is our Jamaat. That's what's that.
Absolutely.
Jamaat.
Absolutely.
Right? And we're all in this city. We're all in this prison. But this is the last thing. This is what our shirt in the black, this we focus on in teaching the belief, because the thing is first we got to talk about the Creator.
There you go. They can see it that way.
You got to talk about the Creator, belief in the Creator. And a lot of times people don't understand about the Creator. They think you're confused. They'll be confused about who we're talking about. And the Arabic word for the Creator of existence, of God, is Allah. So if you're a Jew, if you follow Moses, if you follow Jesus, if you follow Muhammad, you all say the Arabic word, Allah. It's not a different Creator. There's one Creator, the sun, the moon, and all of existence.
Alhamdulillah. Allah bless us.
So we're going to do next week with your show. We're going to go over your book,
Oh, okay.
Raw Law.
That'll be good.
Brother wrote a nice book, Raw Law.
Yeah.
And I guess we can talk about April 4th, and we
Another
appreciate what you
another aspect of a tribute to the example that was set here in America of what it is to be Muslim and how you grow to be a Muslim at the highest level. And everybody's afraid of that example.
Right.
So they settle for lesser examples. But we are going to claim this example because none of us were raised on lesser examples.
Right.
Our ceiling, their ceiling, is our floor. If we are people who came to Islam with the same struggle that Malcolm X came to, that would make their ceiling, as high as they can get, is where we start with our manhood and with our Islam. Keep that in mind.
All right. Well, peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum. Paz contigo. Salam to you. Shalom.
And we're out. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.